back to Little Maple English. I'm your teacher, Joanne. Today, we're going to talk about countable and uncountable nouns. As you remember from last class, we talked about different types of nouns. But those nouns can also be divided into countable and uncountable. In English, numbers are actually very, very important. You have to remember that in English language, nouns can be separated into singular or plural. We'll get into it in more detail, so follow along. All right, so what is countable nouns? Countable nouns may be preceded by a or un or one in the singular. They take a final s or es in the plural. So only countable nouns can be singular or plural. Remember that. For uncountable nouns, they are not immediately preceded by a or un or one. They have no plural form. So do not add a final s or es. Remember, uncountable nouns cannot be singular or plural. Let me give you an example of countable nouns. A student, an apple, kids, oranges. So these are the type of vocabularies that can be in a singular or a plural form, whereas uncountable nouns cannot be in singular or plural. Make sure those nouns are in a base form. So let's take a look at uncountable nouns example. So as you see, luggage is in a base form of a noun. So you cannot say luggages. Make sure you keep it as a base form. So I'll read you the example. Your luggage looks heavy. This news is very important. Even though news has an S in the end, it does not mean it is plural. News itself is in a base form of a noun. So I'll let you practice. So is it countable or uncountable? You can write C for countable and U for uncountable. Bread, cake, dog, student, cheese, and tea. Now let's take a look at the answers. See, the answer is bread is uncountable. Student is countable. Cake is uncountable. Cheese is uncountable. Dog is countable. And tea is uncountable. But do you see that bread, cake, cheese, tea, which are uncountable, can be in different shapes? So bread can be cut into different pieces, or it could be in a different form, just like cake and cheese as well. And tea is a liquid, so you cannot count them. So we will move on to how to make a plural form of countable nouns. So plural noun refers to more than one person, place, or a thing. So let's take a look at the common rules of plurals. So regular plural rules is that you add an S. It applies to most of nouns. So let's take a look at the examples. Book, you just add an S. Books. Orange, oranges. Pen, pens. Cat, cats. Very simple, isn't it? When the noun ends in S, SH, CH, X, or O, you could simply add an ES to the nouns. Bus ends with S, so you would add ES, and you could read it as buses. Dish ends with SH, so you add an ES, which is pronounced as dishes. Church ends with CH, so you add an ES, which is pronounced as churches. Box ends with X, so you would add ES, which is pronounced as boxes. Potato ends with O, so you would add ES, which is pronounced as potatoes. Very, very simple. You all can do it. When a countable noun ends with consonant and a Y, you could simply change Y into I and add ES. Party, which pronounced as parties. City, so cities. Baby, which is babies. When a countable noun ends with F or FE, you would take away F and FE and add a VES. Wolf ends with F, so you would take away F and add a VES, which is pronounced as wolves. Knife ends with FE, so you would take away FE and add a VES, which is pronounced as knives. But there are some exceptions. Staff ends with F, but you will just add S, so you will pronounce as staffs. When a countable noun ends with vowel and a Y, you just simply add an S. So key ends with vowel E and Y, so you would add S. So key to keys. Boy also ends with vowel and a Y, which is O and Y, so you would add an S, which pronounced as boys. Day ends with vowel A and Y, which you can simply add an S and pronounce as days. There are also irregular plural forms. There are various rules in irregular plural form. Vowel change like men and men, woman and woman, tooth to teeth, mouse to mice. There could be no change, so it means it looks the same. So deer to deer, sheep to sheep, fish to fish. And there are unique endings like child to children, ox to oxen. And there are always plurals. Scissors to scissors, clothes to clothes. Usually they are in pairs. And there are irregular plurals that are never plural, like homework or advice. So let's move on to uncountable nouns. So does it mean that uncountable nouns can never be counted? There are actually a way to count them. You could use specific words to express quantity. For example, since cereal is uncountable, you could use a specific word like box to count them. A box of cereal. Milk, which is a liquid, you cannot count milk. So you could use a bottle of milk. Even juice. Juice is a liquid. So you could say 2 liters of juice. How about butter? Butter can be changed in different forms, meaning it's uncountable. So you can use pounds to count them by saying 7 pounds of butter. So I've listed some of the methods for counting uncountable nouns. A can of, 2 cans of. A bag of, 3 bags of. A jar of, 4 jars of. A slice of, 5 slices of. A piece of, 6 pieces of. A loaf of, 7 loaves of. A chunk of, 8 chunks of. A gallon of, 9 gallons of. A pound of, 10 pounds of. A gram of, 11 grams of. A glass of, 2 glasses of. A sheet of, and 13 sheets of. All right, guys, that's it for today. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next class. Bye-bye.